This is an aggressively fabulous crowd. Thank you all so much for coming. My name is State Representative Chris Rabb, AKA Rep Rabb, and I'm pleased to have you here tonight. I would like to acknowledge members of my amazing staff. Where is Madison Carter? Maddie? She may be outside putting out fires. Miles Gomez-Yunkin, please stand up, let people see you. Our newest member, Jamil Edwards, who may also be helping people outside. They'll be coming in. My boss, Feluke Bennett, is not with us today. She's our district office director. And I also would like to thank the good people at the United Lutheran Seminary for allowing us to have this amazing space. Is this a great space? And if you're enjoying the food, that is courtesy of Golden Crust Pizza, just down the street. Yes. I also want to acknowledge Jim Leonard. Please stand, sir. With the City Records Department and his amazing staff. And also we have materials from the State Archives as well. And amongst you, we have some very talented and highly skilled genealogists who will help you. For those of you who are interested in starting your journey, or perhaps you have just started and you may need some assistance. So I want to give a shout out to the African American Genealogy Group, as well as the Afro-American Historical and Genealogical Society. So please, all the genealogists, please take a moment, stand if you're able, and be recognized. These are the people, please stand if able. So after you've done listening to me, you're going to engage with the genealogists. But I want to start by acknowledging a role that I thought I wouldn't have to take on again. For those of you who don't know, I was elected the same night as what's his name? That was seemingly a very long time ago. And I took office. I was elected in November of 2016. I took office in January of 2017 amidst great anxiety, fear, rage, and grief. You may have been one of those people expressing any one of those emotions, if not all of them, over the course of days, weeks, months, and years. And I was new to public service in elective office, and people were coming up to me nonstop. I represent 68,000 neighbors across 4 neighborhoods: West Oak Lane, Mount Airy, Chestnut Hill, and Bluebell Hill. People were coming up to me saying, "What are we going to do?" And I soon realized that one of the hats I would have to wear is being a civic therapist. And I joked about it at first, but I took the role very seriously. And I envisioned this gathering before I even was thinking about elections and thinking about what I would believe is the worst case scenario, which has come to pass. And I am relieved and heartened that this idea that had been floating in my head for some time would be so relevant in this moment. You see, the very first event I had as a newly minted legislator was an event called Where Do We Go From Here?, which was inspired by who? Who said this? Who made this question popular? Dr. King. Dr. King. Where do we go from here? That's what we called our first community event. It was across from the West Oak Lane Library. It was at the Masjidullah. And 95% of people showed up, and it was about maybe twice the size of the folks who came tonight. About 95% had never stepped foot into a mosque. What's special about the Masjidullah is that that mosque used to be a church. And before it was a church, what was it, people? It was a synagogue. That's so very Mount Airy. And people communed. We came together to grieve together, to reflect, and to begin a healing process to talk about where do we go from here. And here we are again. But when we talk about where do we go from here, we have to ask ourselves, who is we? We can all define we very differently. Y'all heard of we the people? Today, we is a lot broader than it was a couple hundred years ago. Most of the people in this room would not be a part of that we. So there's a difference between belonging and fitting in. That orange slice fits in real nice in those cloves of garlic. That's what that is. That's an orange slice. It fits real nice. But it doesn't belong. We need to make distinctions with any number of things to help us navigate these difficult times. We want to feel like we still belong, that this is our society, that we have not given it away to people who don't have our best interests at heart. Am I right? This is not new. This is not new, people. And we have trod these paths before. This is not new. That may be a negative to some people, but it's a positive from my perspective because we survived. We are here. We woke up this morning. And we will thrive. Now, just a couple of days ago, I saw a very moving video, very short video I want to share with you. I think I have this right. To give some historical perspective in these dark days. This is courtesy of 1838 Black Metropolis, a local nonprofit run by public historians. Isn't that powerful? 1838 blackmetropolis.com. It's a local nonprofit I just found out about a couple of months ago. They're local. They are public historians trying to tell the whole story, a narrative that is inclusive, that is inspiring, that is relevant to what ails us today and also can give us strength in these hard times. So I wanted to provide a little context for why we're here. Many of you are here because you want to trace your roots, find your ancestors, build your family history. This is something that I have been doing for over 30 years. Before you, you see Rab's Meat Market. That was a business founded in the 19th century by my great-great-grandfather, Jack Rab, in Columbus, Mississippi. It's a source of strength because Jack was born property to an enslaving family whose last name was Rab. I did not know this when I was growing up. This took genealogical research to find this out. My grandmother didn't know this. She was married into the Rab family. She was a miller. She was like, I don't know about the Rabs. And by that time, my grandfather had died. So a lot of the information I have now, I did not have growing up. I had pieces. And through genealogical research over time, I was able to parcel together a story. But Rab's Meat Market was important because this was an informally enslaved black man who built wealth, hired black people, and was able to provide a better life for his 6 sons. One of those was my grandfather, who had to leave Mississippi because he was about to get lynched. Mad Jack Rab was his name. We don't know why he was called Mad. We're still figuring that out. But he and his wife, Gilly, were buried in the Sandfield Cemetery in Columbus, Mississippi in the 1880s. It's much easier to trace men than women. We know this. Particularly if they get married and take on the name of their husband, you may not know what their maiden name is. Well, for enslaved folks, they may have never had a last name. So you have the gravesite here. Over here you have a census record that lists the people who were owned by Gilly's enslaver. And she may be on here, but before 1870, unless you're a free person of color, which was a very small percentage of black folk, you were listed as a tally. It's a tally mark. So here you have people with no names because they're a property of rich white people, and you would have listed as black or mulatto. Mulatto didn't necessarily mean skin complexion. It didn't mean complexion necessarily. It could have meant parentage. Originally, mulatto meant biracial, a white parent and a black parent. But depending on who the census taker was, they may have called you different things. But those are all the human beings that were owned by the enslaver and potential father of my great-great-grandmother, Gilly Rab. This document is a government document. We are at a community event paid for with your taxpayer dollars to connect genealogy and government. You cannot do genealogical work without government resources. You can't do it. In fact, the most important things are documents created by government to help us find our people. I started this a long time ago. I had hair. That's not my cousin, that's me. I'm gonna fast forward. But when I was a little younger than that, on my very first day of formal genealogical research, I was living in Washington, D.C. I was working for the first black woman senator, Carol Moseley Braun. I was a youngin', and I had started my genealogical journey right after college, and I would take visits to the National Archives, which was just a stone's throw from the U.S. Senate. And on my very first day, I found in the 1880 Mississippi Census, it's the U.S. Census for the state of Mississippi, Loudons County, which is where Columbus, Mississippi is. I found my father's 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 father, Jack Rabb. It's hard to see up here. Under there is Gilly, then Anna, then Alan. Alan's my great-grandfather. They had 6 kids, 3 daughters, 3 sons. But if you go to the right, birthplace of father, Africa. Wow. Birthplace of mother, Africa. I hit the mother load. I'm like, I'm good. Alex Haley don't have anything on me. This is easy. Well, that was 1994. I've gotten no closer to the continent of Africa than on the first day. Genealogically, genetically with DNA testing, I have been connecting to different ethnic groups along the West African coast, but in terms of actual human beings who have names for, stories, nothing. 0 in 30 years. It was a great start, and that is not a failure. Even when you stumble, you're moving forward. And genealogy is rarely linear. It has you going in all kinds of twists and turns. You got to follow it. Well, I was doing quite well on my father's side, figuring out who the Rabbs were and all of that. But I got pulled over to my mom's side. Said, we're going to need you over here. And I was able over years to connect my family to a significant enslaver family that was connected to one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. And I didn't have much to go on. So one of the reasons I'm putting this stuff up here, people, is because I had a few stories, a few photographs, a few letters. I didn't have a treasure trove. I built the treasure trove over 30 years. I had a great start, but I did not have a whole lot. My grandma said, I think one of my ancestors is related to Eleanor Roosevelt somehow, and some Livingstone family that may be connected to the signers of the Declaration of Independence. I want to pay you to find out, to make the connection. I say, okay, Grandma. You don't say no to Grandma. Well, that happened in earnest in the mid-90s, and over the course of almost 30 years, a lot has happened with this particular trek, and I want to share something that actually this video was made by Eric Semmel right here from the Legislative Communications Office in Harrisburg, and he put this together for me. I started this journey 30 years ago when my grandmother asked me for help in her genealogical research. Not in my wildest dreams would I have thought that 30 years later, I would be addressing folks on the 500-acre estate where my great-great-great-grandmother was enslaved, and making remarks not just as a proud scion of an extraordinary array of black folk who've been speaking truth to power, but in a position of power myself as a state lawmaker.
I was gonna just say welcome to my district, but I feel like I'm in your district. This is your roots.
You are a member of this site. You have a tangible and personal connection to this site. that even the long-caring staff here cannot claim for themselves.
I didn't begin this journey. I inherited it. And so I'm really honored to speak on behalf of my extended family, those of us who descend from Christiana, a woman who, through her 96 years, did extraordinary things as an agent in the Underground Railroad, and so many more, whose stories were not documented institutionally.
It's not an easy topic to read about, or write about for that matter, but it's necessary to give identity back to the people who lived and worked here, who for so long have gone unacknowledged.
But it's so much more than recognition. I'm interested in repair. I want this to be a springboard for reparative efforts, collectively, institutionally, systemically. Because we're not repairing Black folk. We're repairing society itself. And if you want to live in a country that is great, we first have to commit to being good. And you can't be good to yourself or anyone else if you're afraid of the truth.
And thank you, Chris, for your willingness to share your family story with us and for the trust you put in us to get it right.
Obviously, it's deeply personal. Christiana was not rich. She was not famous. She did not have formal education. She was a Black woman born in 1812 in New York, where slavery was everywhere. In the North, just like Pennsylvania. Don't get it twisted. But Christiana had the presence of mind and care to share her story with her babies and her babies' babies. And it got passed on to me. I'm talking about Christiana because she was a regular person who was thrust into extraordinary times and did extraordinary things, not just for herself or for her family, but for her community. She defined we much more broadly than many of us, and put her life on the line and survived 96 years to tell her story. I show this because we have Christianas in our family who are not honored, who are not documented, who are not venerated the way they should, because they have the collective wisdom that can benefit us in these times. I don't have Frederick Douglass in my family tree. I had folks who hung out with him. That's nice. But I have people from whom I draw strength. We all do. For some of us, it may be closer or easier for us to connect those dots. For some, we may be estranged, and it may be harder to find people whose values inspire us or whose steps may lead us into a direction that brings us closer to where we want to be, but we got to try. But it also means we have to accept the ugly too. Christiana, I had to prove, was the descendant of a white Livingston. This is the richest white family in America. They owned 1 million acres. 1 million acres of land in New York. And they owned a lot of human beings that the Livingstons never talked about until I showed up in 1996. They're talking about it now, though, because that exhibit is permanent. It's permanent for everybody to see, which is what needs to happen in Pennsylvania. New York did it first. So, I had to connect the dots between Christiana and the white Livingston family. And after almost 2 years of time, I found a government document. It's the certificate of death of Christiana. And you can see Philip Livingston and the mother She had a surname, Barbara Williams. Barbara Williams was born in Jamaica in the 1700s, was brought over as a child as a gift to the Livingstons. Yeah, and was raped. That is my connection to the Livingstons, and that man is my 7th great-grandfather. Philip Livingston, one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, and quite possibly one of the most prolific human trafficking families in American history. 5 generations of human traffickers. So when I put this stuff up here, it is not out of pride. I have no pride, but I also have no shame. It's important to realize this. You can't have shame for something that you didn't do. I had nothing to do with that knucklehead. Nothing. I don't have a scintilla of guilt. But if I benefit from systems of oppression, that's a different story. That's a different story. I have white cousins who still have the Livingston name who are fabulously wealthy. That wealth is born off the backs of forced laborers, of my ancestors. They're not responsible for slavery, but if they have all that money that comes from forced labor, you better believe there is complicity. There is a level of privilege like no other. The average white person wasn't even in this country in the 1700s. But if you're in that rare group who was born into generations of great wealth, you have a responsibility. And in many ways, we all have a responsibility. And part of that is just looking within and telling the whole truth, as ugly as it may be. The last video I'm going to show you is something that's a little cringeworthy, but I think you'll appreciate it. A lot of people, depending on the audience, when I tell the story about my connection to the signer, people are very excited and like, oh, that's amazing, that's wonderful, until they hear the story. Well, it just so happened not long after I took office, there was a resolution to honor, I think it's the 100th anniversary of the Sons of the American Revolution. And a Republican colleague of mine who I'd never met before, who put up the resolution, was about to speak on his resolution. And I came up to him and I said, Rep, would you mind if I say a few words as well? We had never met. He had no idea who I was. He said, yes, I'm certain he regrets it. I descend from Philip Livingston, my great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, who was one of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence, and Henry Lighthorse Harry Lee III from Virginia. And I wasn't aware that you would bring to me today one of my cousins, one of my Livingston cousins, and 2 constituents from my legislative district. So this is particularly meaningful to me today as aggressively nerdy in the genealogical department. I was asked to join the Sons of the American Revolution shortly after I connected my family to the Livingston family of New York over 20 years ago, and I shuffled around the paperwork, and here we are today, so let's talk. But I wanted to just say briefly, this is particularly meaningful to me. My connections to these founding families was born of slavery and rape. And yet I have no shame nor pride around this. I understand the difference between biology and family. And despite all of the atrocities that have brought families together, something greater has brought us together. The fight against tyranny, values of freedom and justice. And I look amongst you and I see family, quite literally. We're bigger than our biology. We share a heritage that we should all be proud of. We are serving in one of the oldest governing bodies in the New World, and it is an honor that we can come together irrespective of political ideology or ethnicity or class and stand here in the well of this illustrious body and be thankful for those people who gave their lives so that we could be the authors of our own fate collectively for the United States of America. So I want to thank all of you and congratulate the Sons of the American Revolution. And again, this is truly an honor. Thank you. Yeah, that was a little cringy. He was very kind. But I didn't mean it, I meant no disrespect. But I felt if we're going to talk about the history, we got to talk about the history. I cannot stand idly by and let folks whitewash the truth. The truth is not easy to process sometimes. This is a pedigree chart. And as I conclude my remarks and let you all get into it, this was something that I put together. I'm here at the bottom. The left side is my paternal side, my father's side. Right side is my maternal side. Before you, above are my parents, 4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents, 16 great-great-grandparents. And what I did one day at my kitchen table years ago was try to put on paper just things that I had internalized doing decades of research. And I was able to, I had multiple layers of information. And I said, okay, so I know all of their names. I know all of their names. Going back 200 years. I didn't try to remember it, but I've been doing it so long and so intensely, I could just do it. But then I said, well, what else, what other information do I know about these folks? Where were they born? So I put the state in which they were born, the state where they lived the longest, and the state in which they died. Then I said, well, let me look at the death certificates. Again, government documents. I said, well, let me figure out how long these folks lived. Now, some of the folks who were born during slavery times, we didn't have a birthday, a birth year. We had to guess. But we have estimates of how old my ancestors are, going all the way back to really the early 1800s. I also have numbers associated with them with how many presumed siblings they may have had. I also have in red the people who were enslaved, most of whom were enslaved by their own biological fathers. So everybody on this list is black until you get to that top row. That's the 32 great-great-great-grandparents we all have. Many of them were rapists. And when I was finding that out in my early 20s as a young man, that was very hard to process. But I had to learn very quickly, there is a difference between ancestry and heritage. And we kind of talked about a little bit when we talked about guilt and shame and pride. But ancestry is what we are. Heritage is who we choose to become based on what we inherit from previous generations. Heritage is cultural. It's how we may see ourselves in the world. What is our social identity? What are our values? What is our community? Who is the we to us? Heritage has a lot of connection to that. Ancestry is the biological, is the genealogical. When we talk about genealogy, we're talking about our family tree. We're talking about a very kind of clear way we document who belongs on our family tree and where and how. It's kind of like the skeleton. But when we want to tell a story, when we want to develop a narrative for our people, that's family history. Not all genealogists are family historians. And certainly not all family historians are genealogists. If you're both, that's great. It tends to be folks who like to write and tell stories. But if you're just a researcher, you may outsource the family history to someone who has strong writing skills. You just like to research and like build puzzles, right? That's essentially what genealogists are. We put pieces together. The last thing is just kind of a thing I tell folks. How many folks have like a distant cousin that you consider a friend, like you're really close to? Anyone? Few? Well, I have a couple of those who I met like in my young adulthood. We didn't grow up together. We didn't know we were related or anything like that. And we came really close. That cousin's family, their sibling who I never met, they're a relative. Family is who you say is family. You define your we, not the government, not me, not your neighbor. You decide who is important to you and why. How you start this genealogical journey is up to you. You may be trying to connect yourself to some celebrity, some historical figure. I'm not mad at you. I would love to say, oh, Frederick Douglass was my great whatever. That'd be nice. Maybe you're looking for a long lost relative. Maybe you're adopted. Maybe you're estranged from your family and you want to know about the people who came before the people you don't want to deal with. There's no one right way to do this work. But do it with love, do it with care, do it with patience and kindness to yourself, because you will find some stuff you will not like. If you don't, you haven't tried hard enough, I assure you. I don't know any genealogist who's gone unscathed. And whenever people say, wait, you have 5,000 people in your database? That's amazing. I wish I had all that stuff in my family. I say, no, you don't. Slow up. Because if just 1% of my 5,000 people who are documented in my family tree were, how should I say, problematic, that's 50 people that I got to claim. 50 awful, awful human beings I'd rather not have anything to deal with. So there's responsibility, there's joy, but there's also the recognition that this work sometimes is challenging. The last thing I want to put up here is we have, like I said at the beginning, we have genealogists at different tables who have skills and lived experiences who can help you kind of talk through maybe some first steps. At your tables, or at least most of them, you'll have an ancestral chart or a pedigree chart. This is where you put your people, your parents, your grandparents, and those who came before them. This is not where you put uncles or cousins or nephews or children. That's another document. That's a descendant chart. That's another thing. But normally when people start, you start with your ancestry, starting with your parents, all right? If you are like, when I started, I was like, who are the Rabs? And I find the Rab patriarch, then I might want to have a descendant chart where I have Jack and Gilly up there, and I want to find out all of their descendants. That's a different chart. They can be put together, but depending on how you want to start your journey, you may want to start from the top down, like from a specific ancestral coupling, like Jack and Gilly, and go down and see who are all the people who make up the Millers, the Johnsons, the Williams, the Oglesbys, whomever. Or you may just want to start with yourself and say, this is Mama, this is Papa, these are my 4 grandparents, and see how far you can go. And one of the great things about talking to genealogists is, if you can't get that far, you may think that you're not able to go past that barrier. Listen to the genealogist, because they've been there. Do not believe that it is hopeless for you to find something of consequence for you. I say this as a black person, but I talked to a lot of Jewish folks who said, my ancestor was the only one who made it out of modern day Russia, because of the pogroms, because of the Holocaust, of all of those things. This is another moment to acknowledge that we all are members of communities of struggle that have more in common than what divide us, regardless of what you see on corporate media and social media. The stories of resistance and care and creativity transcends ethnicity and nationality. There are going to be things you have more in common with, perhaps, with your Jewish brothers and sisters than with folks who maybe living down the street of some other ethnicity. You're going to find things in common that may give you hope and may give you some clarity in terms of what are some important next steps. So, go Eagles. But we have time, and this is the interactive time. I'm going to be walking around. Raise your hand, my volunteer genealogists. Raise your hand. All right. So these are folks who are here to answer questions or to share some basics around how you can get started. If you're not at a table with the genealogist, you can pull up a chair. If you want to mill around, you want to see what's over here with the City Records Department, see what's happening there. If you want to talk amongst yourselves at your own tables, I will come around. But for those of you who are here with a purpose, I want to make sure you're at a table with a genealogist. And if there are more than one genealogist at one table, if you could move to another table so more people can benefit from your expertise, that would be great. Okay? Now, this turnout is extraordinary, and it sends a message to me that we need to be having more things like this. Is that right? All right, so understand this. The best events happen from meaningful feedback from the people who show up and participate in good faith. So this is why we always ask for your information. So when we follow up with an email, if there's a survey or if there's an opportunity for you to reflect and say, I wish you would have done this, or next time, can you consider this? Because when you have all of this feedback coming, the next event will be even better. And we want to make sure it's available to people who weren't able to come tonight. All right? So now we're going to break, and we're going to have you talk to genealogists. I will come around to tables as well. If you want to talk in your own tables, talk about your own stories, or just take time to start filling out this ancestral chart. If you don't have an ancestral chart, we'll make sure that you get one, and we'll help you along the way. Thank you all so much, and let's roll up our sleeves and get to work here.